right. Well, welcome everyone to the OEN workshop. It looks like we have about 60 participants, so that is great. My name's Patty Scott. I'm part of the TIPQC team. And you see Amanda Nally. She is our communication IT genius with TIPQC. Dr. DeVoe is our state leader for this project, and he's got some discussion with us later. Anna Murad, Dr. Murad is our infant medical director. And then Scott Guthrie, Dr. Scott Guthrie is our incoming infant medical director. Please don't turn cartwheels, Dr. Murad. She loves us, but she's ready to pass the torch, aren't you? All right. So here is our agenda. We are going to start with some team sharing. We have 3 teams that are going to share some very interesting work that they've done. TriStar Hendersonville, then Women's and Children's at Centennial, and then University of Tennessee Medical Center at Knoxville. Then Dr. DeVoe is going to talk to us about ways to improve communication between healthcare teams. And then hopefully we can have some group discussion regarding communication and team sharing. And then as we wrap up, we'll look at next steps. We will look at the NAS Universal Training, joining with the maternal teams for Wave 2, monthly huddles, and then the summer learning session. All right, as we get started, do you want to say anything, Dr. DeVoe?
Just want to welcome everybody for kind of sitting in on this, and really some exciting topics we're going to cover this afternoon, as well as everything that we've heard in the last first 2 days of the annual meeting. And it's just been a wonderful group of presenters and presentations, and opening up all kinds of channels for continuing future improvement. So glad to have you aboard. Great.
All right. So let's start with our friend Stephanie Elston from Hendersonville Medical Center. Stephanie, will you talk to us about your work?
Can you hear me, Patty?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. So we started our Wave 1 project with the goal to get everyone some standardized training using the Vaughn network. And we wanted to have 90% of our staff up and running by March 2020, which we actually were able to get 100% of our staff. So we were very proud of that. And then after that, we worked on our non-pharmacological program to help decrease our length of stay for our babies that actually did come to the NICU for care. So we worked on our drug exposed newborn policy. We worked on a parent teaching tool that we were able to have a parent on our team that helped us with that. So we were really excited about that. We worked on a worksheet for communication between the OB staff and the nursery and NICU staff. We created a resource book so that even if the super users for the project weren't around, that staff would have something that they could refer to if they had questions during times that we weren't here. We also did some resource mapping to have for our social worker in case our families needed resources outside of the hospital. Lastly, at the very end of last year, we had an occupational therapist that started working here and in the NICU, and she's very excited to join our team. And so she is getting certified in infant massage to help us further our non-pharmacological care. So that was really exciting. Some of the challenges that we have encountered is remembering to get our new staff oriented through the Vaughn network so that we can continue to have that standardized training. Once we got everybody done, it was, just kept slipping our minds that new people also needed to get on there. We did, in the end, have a decrease in our length of stay for our pharmacologically cared for infants by about 4 days. So we were real proud of that. In our future works, what we would really like to focus on and have already started for this year is we are going to transfer to the Eat, Sleep, Console method. And so our team for Wave 2 has joined with our OB friends, and we're super excited about that. And so we're working on an education plan for the staff to get Eat, Sleep, and Console up and running. Hopefully by May 1st is our first aim for this next project. But we're also looking to work with our OB friends with some Narcan training and introducing even that in the OB offices. Our OB physician champion is real excited about that and looking to work on that this year. And even the postpartum long acting reversible contraceptive, us trying to incorporate that this year too. So we're real excited about what this year is going to hold for the next wave.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah,
Thanks, Patty.
I just
Oh.
have a quick comment to Mike DeVoe. And looking at your length of stay graph, to me, the biggest plus that I see there is your cases that really exceed that 20-day margin have dropped significantly. You've got much lower variation, I think, in length of stay. It's more consistent. Yes, you've had one or two that have gone over, but it's not nearly the rate that you were seeing before all this. So good work with all that.
Thank you. We're real excited to hopefully incorporate Eat, Sleep, Console and maybe drop that a little bit even more.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thanks, Patty.
All right. So now let's hear from our friends at TriStar Centennial Women's and Children's, Annette, Edens, and Ashley. I'm not sure who's going to speak since Annette's voice is on the fritz, but one of you, hopefully.
I'm sorry, Patty. Can you hear me now?
I can. Your voice sounds pretty good, Annette.
Okay, I'm going to try to get through it. So we started Eat, Sleep, Console in June of 2020. And that after we started that, we saw a huge reduction in the amount of babies that needed pharmacological management. After we implemented Eat, Sleep, Console, only 9% of our babies needed any pharmacological management. That was a 32% reduction over prior year. We also reduced the number of babies that were transferred to our NICU for care to 24%. So that was a 14% reduction over prior year. So that allowed for an increase in the number of babies that were able to room in with their parents. Throughout this process, we created new education for our parents, which included a pamphlet for non-pharmacological interventions, and then QR codes where they could watch videos. We made a new policy for our staff to educate them on non-pharmacological interventions and Eat, Sleep, Console. We also created a diary for our parents to help educate them and so that they're able to keep track of their baby's progress. And then we also created a crib card so that it would help the nurses identify these babies, and it also included education for the parents.
Lots of good work. Lots of good work. Thank you, Annette. We appreciate you sharing.
You're welcome.
And then last but not least, University of Tennessee in Knoxville, Dr. Tara Burnett, are you where you can share with us? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Great.
Sorry, I was in checkout rounds.
That's
I'm on tonight. Try to do 3 things at one time. Okay, I think what we were asked to share was yes, how we identified our OUD mothers and how we were doing trying to increase the handoff of those moms so that both teams were aware. So the way that we're doing that and have been doing that is we have board rounds twice a day that occur over in L&D, but all of the physicians who are on call and also the nursing representation from all the different units, L&D, the NICU, and the mother baby all attend those twice a day. And so all the women in labor are discussed, and anybody coming in for inductions, things that are anticipated are discussed. So that's an opportunity for everyone to be aware of moms with a OUD. We also have a sign off between the L&D nurse and the mother baby nurses that would include that information. And then Zach started this Excel database, and Megan Lacey has continued it, and Vicki Bradfield. And I think the next slide will show. Okay. This is what the Excel database contains. And there's information basically there that supported the maternal arm of the project in wave 1, as well as the neonatal arm. And so it is on one of our shared drives, OneDrive, and then it's open to several people, Vicki, Megan Lacey, Vicki Bradfield on the neonatal side, and Megan Lacey. And I can also see it. They do the data entry on this Excel file. And so if Megan identifies a mother first, she can start putting it in this file. And then we can pick it up whenever we have the mother and the baby, we can pick it up and start filling it in on the baby. Or we may have a baby that somehow she has not had the mother. And so kind of works both ways. And then we take that information and enter it into our TIP-QC REDCap. So we keep track of the REDCap numbers as well. But this is just an example of one way. I've been thinking of how we could also access this information from a clinical standpoint, but we're not really there yet. So right now it is an identification between the maternal and the infant arms of TIP-QC. And right now we are not having problems getting the information that we need on the babies. I think everybody's identified, and I think we're able to look up and get the information. But it's another way that we might use that. Okay, the next thing that I think you had asked me to, okay, sorry, this one is I included, and it is an NAS data form that we developed to keep track of our information that needs to be included or given to the state for state reporting. And we revised that very recently because the state changed their reporting requirements. And typically it's all the same babies that are obviously going into our TIP-QC. And we included the ICD-10 codes because that is now required. And so we added that to our billing lists that we use, that the physicians use, and that we code for billing. But also these codes are important to do your reporting to the state. And also it's important when you're referring to TEIS, they want these codes now. So I was just sharing this about how we keep track of our data for TIP-QC and our data for how we, sorry, I can't do two things at once. I'll answer you in just a second, Anna. I do see it. So this is how we're keeping track of data for TIP-QC and data for the state. And it just kind of streamlines things because we also started reporting to the state on all the OENs. We just used to report on all the ones who came to the NICU and had pharmacologic management. So I think I'll get with Brenda or with you, Patty, and figure out how to put this under that tab on, where we have resources.
Yes, please do.
And happy to share that. And then Anna was asking, how do we keep that secure? The previous slide with the Excel, it is on our OneDrive. And then OneDrive is a shared drive, for the university. It may be called something else different in your institution. So and you set the protections as far as who can access it. And so number one, you have to be signed into the university system in order to see OneDrive at all or access it. And then number two, it's protected by how you set it up, who you allow. So other people could possibly see it, but they can't access it because they're not authorized to.
Thank you.
Okay, and then the other thing I think that you all wanted to mention briefly is the way that we approached our education.
Yes.
And we had a Grand Rounds conference that went over trauma-informed care and ACEs, and that was very well received, and it's attended by nursing as well as our OB and pediatric providers. Written materials were developed, but then the conundrum that I always have with any of this is it's so many people. When you're talking about the nursing staff, it's so many people, to make sure everybody is receiving it. So the ways that we did that was an email listserv, and then the written materials, which had been sent out by email, was reviewed in meetings, staff meetings with the nurse managers. And we did one-on-one teaching with the nurse managers so that they were well aware of what those materials were. And presentations were given during new nurse orientations. And then one-on-one teaching was done by our nurse educators. The nurse educators also used some of their routine group sessions to disseminate some of these materials. And the things that were covered were decreasing stigma, standardized screening, creating and utilizing a local resource map, breastfeeding and substance use, and Narcan training. We also did a lot on the neonatal side with we are currently doing Eat, Sleep, Console, and we're using the Vaughn module and tracking it in our required education system to make sure that everyone is able to complete that. And we developed the lactation materials, and lactation and our nurse educator have done one-on-one education with the nursing staff about that. So that was just a little summary of how we approached education and what topics we used.
Thank you.
Tara, this is Mike. Represents a lot of work that your team has done. I had one quick question on your data reporting form that you showed us a minute ago.
Sure.
Have you found a way to electronically upload that to the state, or does it have to be transcribed?
Their system is a REDCap system, and so it is not shared. So we have to enter it. But this is how we keep track of it on paper. And then Angela, one of our nurse educators,
uploads it to the state.
She puts it into the state.
Yeah, it's not easy to directly upload anything to the state.
No, I don't think so.
I'm sure there are reasons for that, but
yeah,
great job.
Okay, sure.
All right. So we will transition to our educational piece of the workshop. Dr. DeVoe, who we recognized earlier in the workshop, is our project leader for the OEN project, and he's also offering his leadership as we move into wave 2. Dr. DeVoe, I'll let you take it away, sir.
Great. Thanks everyone again for attending this afternoon. And what I'm going to focus on for the next 10 or 15 minutes is on improving communication between healthcare teams. And it's interesting, when I started doing literature searches, there are thousands of articles on how to do shift change reports, medical, resident student reports, handoffs, etc. But very few articles were out there that really looked at how to communicate from one team doing a completely different process to a follow-up team, or a team that's kind of working together on the same dyad in our case, and what seems to work and what are the barriers for effective communication between two different services and not just two different groups of people. So communication in general, if you want to get back to the basics from Merriam-Webster, is a process by which information is exchanged between individuals through a common system of symbols, signs, or behavior. And this slide up here just kind of illustrates the approach people have taken in the past, going anywhere back to smoke signals, to early telegraphs, to communication flags on ships, to just talking with each other, and how to really want to design a system to really effectively pass the baton, so to speak. So I found 2 or 3 very good articles, and I'll encourage you as we go along to kind of pull these articles up and take a look at them. They do offer a lot of insight on what kinds of communication strategies are beneficial when you're communicating between different teams of caretakers, as well as lots of other ways to look at your own method right now and maybe to improve them. Next slide, please. And this is a very good article, and probably the most important one if you want to go ahead and look at pertinent materials out in the literature. And this is from the British Medical Journal of Pediatrics, published in 2019. And this is talking about challenges faced during handovers. And they call handoffs or shift change reports or change reports handovers. So it's kind of an interesting read in the literature. So the objective of their study was to look at the content and quality of communication of inter-service handover, in this case between OB nurses and the neonatal care teams, and they looked at high-risk deliveries. But again, this is one of the few things that looked at effective handovers or handoffs between 2 completely separate care teams. You don't find much in the literature, as I mentioned. And they based their study on the fact that although handovers are instrumental for care, continuity evidence suggests that they are a source of medical errors. Compared with shift-based handovers within the same team, challenges are exacerbated in inter-service, interprofessional handovers, such as you see in the emergency room with residents and floor residents, et cetera, because of the difference in clinical experiences, expertise with both of the teams, difference in professional backgrounds, and varying roles within the teams. And looking at their results of their study, they found that looking at handovers between the OB team and the neonatal infant team, 52% of the handovers missed one or more important critical elements. Residents and nurses involved in the teams attributed the communication failure back to the lack of a formalized mechanism or protocol for capturing or sharing the handover process. So again, barriers that they identified included barriers in content, with including limited time for handover preparation. I'm sure everyone who's participating in this call has gone through the panic mode. Oh, we're having bed rounds, or we're having shift change reports, or we're having communication rounds in 5 minutes. Let me grab all the information I think we're going to need and try to put it all together. And you may not have time to really kind of thoroughly go through what it is you're supposed to be talking about with the other team. The other problem that's universal, I think, also is information is fragmented into different data sources. It can be from progress notes, antepartum records. A lot of time it's just a plain verbal report going from one person to the next. And then if you're the reporting team going on to the completely different service team, like the newborn nursery or NICU, you need to make sure that you've included materials that are really pertinent to what the follow-up team is going to require. Another major issue identified is their inconsistent use of tools for handovers. And if you look at the literature again, every center has its own tools that they think work best for handovers, SBAR reports, personal lists, or having no tool at all. And they really focus on the fact that you really need to get a well-developed tool, including checklists and things like that. Try to stick to it. Incorporate lots of members on your team with varying points of view to make it a very thorough resource. And when you develop that tool, use it consistently. there is also a lot of subjectivity in the manner in which nurses prepared and organized the information for handovers. And we mentioned lack of time, unavailability of information, and difference in levels of expertise and experience of the RN staff. RN staff, as you know, ranges anywhere from very new grads to people who have been there for 20 or 30 years. And there is obviously a change in the way that the different nursing staff approach the process of a handover. So again, their goal was promoted in this paper was consistency. And I would urge each of you to take a look at this because it does give you some effective tools that are listed further in the article for looking at your own process, identifying what barriers you have, and moving forward. Next slide, please. Challenges faced during handovers. You can go ahead to the next slide. I think we've talked about all of these. And this is a second article in Postgraduate Medical Journal from 2014. And they gave 5 or 6 different very good hints on how to overcome barriers in team communication. And again, they were looking at communication of important or critical material from team A to team B. In our case, we're talking about the OB perinatal team to the newborn nursery NICU team for these maternal and infant dyads. So basically, they're recommending teaching effective communication strategies. Again, a common tool that both teams have worked on and developed that appears to provide the essential information needed without going overboard. Once it's developed by both teams, use the tool. It can be in the form of some form of structured communication, SBARs, whatever works best for your own center. It's also highly recommended to train the teams together on the best use of the tool that you've developed, rather than doing them independently. You'll see a lot of thoughts and comments going back and forth on this doesn't make sense or this doesn't make sense. But at some point have some joint meetings between the teams and really discuss the tool that you're about to use. It's also recommended to do simulations to really practice using the tool in a simulated environment, make sure the correct information is being transferred from team A to team B so that everyone can work most efficiently. You also want to include or define inclusive teams. And the development of the tool should not just be done by nursing staff and physicians. Anybody who's working with this parent should probably help you develop the tool. Social work, discharge planners, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, whoever else you're using to manage both these moms and these babies. So really, the point is to include them in the development of the tool and to be available as needed to kind of fine tune the tool or participate in some of the handover situations. Next slide. And next slide is again from the Postgraduate Medical Journal. They also thought that you should create democratic teams. And what they meant by that was each team member in the process of developing the tool and with the daily checkouts, handovers, has value. Really want to make sure that everyone is free to speak up with what they think about what needs to be watched, what needs to be communicated, opens up the communication and is very helpful. You want to support teamwork with protocols, again, checklists and briefings. And I think every one of you has already put together lots of different protocols and checklists as a result of participating in this project for the last 2 years. And then obviously we're looking for an organizational culture, senior champions, et cetera. So not just the leadership within the 2 units that are communicating with each other, but higher up to the whole organizational structure. You need buy-in from them. And I think they all realize that effective communication is going to be beneficial to the whole hospital system. The majority of medical errors result as a result of poor communication between individuals or between different care teams. So the more we can work on improving communication, the better everyone's going to be. Next slide. This is an article from about crew resources, and this was actually an A1 article. This was published in 2016. And again, this is kind of a more general medical article. They refer to training of people in communication as crew resource management. I don't know how many of you consider yourselves crew, or your managers are crew resource managers, but it's kind of an interesting term. Crew resource management requirements are you have to have situational awareness, decision-making capability. You need a team leader with backup from higher ups in your administrative organization, focus on teamwork, and you need to recognize personnel and personal limitations. You know, some people may not feel comfortable or are very good communicators to start with. Yes, you should include them on the team, but just be aware that there may be some limitations and they may need assistance in some areas. Finally, career resource management. You don't just put your protocol in place with your protocols, checklists, et cetera, without going back and making sure that, yes, it's working. And that's referred to as error mitigation. You go back and look for errors in the handoffs. Why did they happen? It's like almost like putting up a mini PDSA cycle focusing around that error. You want the structure of the teams and education to be critical, well-defined processes. And again, the use of checklists can be very, very effective. And again, this is not limited to the medical industry, so to speak, but this also works in almost every business organization that's out there. And people are very focused on this type of communication to cut down your errors. Next slide. So again, just some good basics. I would encourage you to take a look at all three of those articles. Ask yourself, are you seeing the barriers? Have you implemented some of the ways to go ahead and address those barriers within your system? Looking at what's going on with TIPQC in this project over the last couple of years, communication has always been in the background of every project. And especially in this one where we do rely on communication between a maternal team and an infant team so closely, I think it's critical that we work out that process and make it as efficient as possible. But thank you for your time. And I didn't know if Anna had any comments or Patty had comments.
I think that was a really good overview. I think, we all struggle to find the right method for our teams. And I think that was a nice sampling of what we can think about. Thank you.
Okay.
And this is an important part of the project moving forward into wave 2. And that's the reason you wanted to discuss it. We've got a few extra minutes here for group discussion. I wonder if anybody that's part of wave 2 or someone that has worked in their facility to develop communication methods would want to share during this time.
I was curious to hear if any of you recognize some of those barriers that we talked about and have tried to look at ways to work around them.
This is a quiet group, isn't it?
Maybe they've all got it figured out.
I've learned, this is Helen Scott, and I've learned a lot from our organization. I work for Methodist Healthcare, Lavana Healthcare, and we use a Cinderlane program that is very helpful, I think, with communication. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I'm not, but I know there are lots of different programs out there focusing on communication in the business world. Okay, anyone else?
You mentioned inconsistencies in handoffs, and I think, or in the process itself, I think that's a very big point. I do think there's a lot of inconsistency. I think sometimes we're in such a hurry that we don't think through it, and that it adds to the inconsistency. So I can certainly see that.
Okay.
Anybody else want to share a question?
Do most of you have a tool or a process that you worked out for this specific type of interaction between your two teams? Like a template that you use?
Well, if you think of a question, you can certainly chat it in. Amanda's following our chat box. So feel free to chat that in. We want to hear from you.
We use, this is Helen again, we use the S-bar in our system, and there are some other, I guess, different acronyms of ways to communicate that we use. So that's a good one, I think.
Okay. That's certainly a very familiar tool that everyone has worked with at one time or another. So with the appropriate modifications for this project, I think that can be very helpful.
All right, so
Okay.
let's talk about next steps. Don't be shy, chat in. So the Vaughn NAS Universal Training, a couple of our speakers mentioned that. Stephanie mentioned it for sure. I remember her mentioning it. This does close at the end of June, so you still have some time if you want to utilize that. Work with your maternal team and join our Wave 2. Have you turned in your application? We would love to have you join our team. And then we've got our upcoming huddles. Our next huddle will be on April the 13th at 2 p.m. and then May 11th at 2 p.m. And we would love to have all of you participate. This is a great chance for you to work with your maternal people. I think Dr. Young mentioned earlier today, this is the first time we've really had a joint project like this. So it's kind of exciting. And then we're hoping to have a learning session in June. Date to be announced, but that is our plan. We hope to. We do have podcasts. I mentioned this to the workshop attendees yesterday, and I know you've seen some information on that throughout the conference so far. We have several podcasts, 15 episodes so far. 4 of them are on OUD and or OEN. So as I said yesterday, there's a vertical ribbon across the top of the screen, and you just choose podcasts from the TIPQC website, which is www.tipqc.org. And the podcasts are really very good. So tune into those. There's great topics. And like I said, 4 of them are on this topic. We have a lot of video resources on the TIPQC website and free CMEs. These are videos, they're right on the website. They're under resources under this project, very easy for you to access. And you can see lots of different topics that you might find helpful for your staff. Any other questions or comments? I hate for us to be done this early. Towards the end of the day, people they do tend to be a little less talkative though. I will say that.
Maybe we just covered it really, really well, huh?
Go with that.
So I think if anybody has podcast topics that they would like for us to cover, Amanda's saying yes. Amanda is a miracle worker and she will make you sound so amazing. So if you've got something you want to cover, if you'd like to participate in a podcast, let us know, because we would love to feature topics or things that you all have to say, or, you know, if you've got somebody that you would love to hear from, please let us know.
Yes, we aspire to have 52 episodes a year, every Monday have an episode. So, and we do kind of a maternal infant back and forth. So about half of those should be an infant topic. So yeah, anything.
And the other thing I would say is, for those of you who know me, I am not good at social media, but I have teenagers who are. But please, please, please check out the TIPQC social media, and please like us, or whatever you do. Do you like us, Amanda? Is that what you do?
Like, follow, it depends on which social media.
Tweet, retweet.
We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn now. So come hang out with me, because it's me.
She does an amazing job. We appreciate her so much.
Yeah. Also, just a note, I know I've kind of been harping on it in the chat, but nominations close at 4. That's only 20 minutes away. So if you have a really great project idea, we want to hear it, because we'll put that on the voting. Also, keep in mind, voting is from 5 p.m. tonight until 11 a.m. tomorrow. So we will not be in session during voting. I'm going to send out an email with the link. It's also in LeaderPass, so just sign in after 5 o'clock. Click on the voting, and it will take you to a brief 1 to 2 minute survey where you just pick your top favorite topics, and then we'll announce those tomorrow afternoon at 4:30. So
Great.
heard that well.
Hey, Patty, this is Kelly Smith from Regional One. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Mine keeps going in and out, so because I'm at home, so I don't know what's going on. But I have a question. Who did the second poster presentation, where they after the use of ESC, only 9% of their OENs needed morphine?
That was Annette from Centennial Women's and Children's. Do you have a
Okay,
question
that's
for her?
right. Okay, because in of these posters, are we going to be able to the things that people are using? Are they going to post? I like that other form too that you just passed by. Are we going to be able to look at these anywhere, like on the TIPQC webpage or anything?
They are on our YouTube channel, and they are also going to be on our website. They're also within LeaderPass, so you can watch those videos. You can send us an email and we can connect you directly to the presenter.
Okay.
Or you can put a comment in the chat on the main back on LeaderPass, and those people can come back and interact with you there too. So we have a lot of different ways we can connect and to rewatch those. And
Good.
Really, Annette, I'm going to speak for Annette because I feel like I know her very well. I'm sure she would be perfectly fine if you wanted to shoot her an email.
I'm sure she would too. So
that's one of the things I love about our teams. They're so willing to share.
Yes. So I will certainly do that. Thank you so much.
And Dr. Burnett has already said that she'll send this to us, her state screening form.
Oh, good.
Put it as a resource on the website. So
that would definitely help me because I'm the one that collects the data and enters it, and I'm a little behind right now.
I'm always so impressed by the way the teams are so willing to share. It just warms my heart. Any other questions or comments before we adjourn? Well, I have a couple things I'd like to say. I want to recognize Dr. DeVoe for the leadership he's provided for this project thus far and his willingness to hang on and continue with us. He has been a wonderful resource, and we really appreciate and recognize his commitment to the babies in Tennessee. I also want to shout out to Dr. Murad, our infant medical director. Her leadership and guidance with this project and all things infant has been wonderful as well. So we appreciate every one of our teams. We appreciate all of your hard work, and be sure and nominate, be sure and vote tonight, and don't tell anybody you're getting done 15 minutes early. Dr. DeVoe, do you have any closing words?
Nothing else, but thanks for the comments you just made, but there's really a huge supporting team at TIPQC that can really assist all of us in leadership with project development, comments along the way, lots of emails from Brenda on a regular basis to keep us all on task. So it's certainly a huge group of people behind the scenes that make it all work so well. And I have to thank every one of them also.
Lots of great comments in the chat box and a couple suggestions there, Miss Amanda, for your podcasts.
yes, those look like good ones. I've copied them down and we will follow up on those. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you to everyone. Thank you to the teams. Thank you for your willingness to share. And we will see everyone tomorrow for our third day of the conference. Y'all have a good evening.